Organisms and populations. Wow. Living world is fascinatingly diverse and amazingly complex, consisting of a biological hierarchy. Various levels of biological organization are macromolecules, cell, tissue, organs, individual organism, populations, communities, ecosystems, and the biomes. Ecology is a subject which studies the interaction among organisms and between the organism and its physical environment. German biologist Ernst Haeckel 1866 was the first to coin the term ecology. The hierarchy in the levels of organization connected with the ecological group of organism is called the ecological hierarchy or the ecological levels of ecological hierarchy or ecological levels of organization. Individual organisms is a basic unit of ecological hierarchy. Ecology at the organismic level is essentially physiological ecology, which tries to understand how different organisms are adapted to the environment in terms of not only survival but also reproduction. Seasonal variations, together with the annual variation in precipitation, account for the formation of major biomes, such as desert, rainforest, and tundra. Regional and the local variations within each biome lead to the formation of a wide variety of habitats. On planet Earth, life exists in a few favorable habitats as well as in extreme and the harsh habitats, such as scorching Rajasthan desert, perpetually rain-soaked Meghalaya forest, deep ocean trenches, torrential streams, permafrost polar regions, high mountain tops, boiling thermal stream, etc. Even our intestine is a unique habitat for hundreds of the species of microbes. The most important key elements that lead to variation in the physical and the chemical conditions of different habitats are the temperature, water, light, and soil. Physicochemical components alone do not characterize the habitat of an organism completely. Habitat also includes biotic component, that is the pathogen, parasites, predators, and competitors of the organisms with which they interact constantly. Over a period of time, the organism had, through natural selection, evolved adaptations to optimize its survival and reproduction in its habitat. Each organism has a invariable defined range of the conditions that it can tolerate, diversity in the resources it utilizes, and a distinct functional role in the ecological system. All this together comprise its niche or the niche. Major abiotic factors. First is we have temperature. Temperature is one of the most ecologically relevant environmental factor. It ranges from the sub-zero levels in the polar areas and high altitudes to more than 50 degrees Celsius in tropical deserts in summer. There are, however, unique habitats such as thermal springs and deep sea hydrothermal vents where average temperature exceeds 100. Temperature affects the kinetics of the enzymes and through it the basal metabolism activity and the other physiological function of the organism. The levels of the thermal tolerance of the different species determine to a large extent the geographical distribution depending on the ability to tolerate temperature. Various organisms are of two types. Organisms which can tolerate a wide range of temperature variations are called a euthermal organism. Example, wide range of temperatures are called euthermal. Are called euthermal. What the fuck? Example, most mammals and birds, that is the Artemisia tridentata. This is a plant of family Asteraceae. Organisms which live within the narrow range of temperature because of the requirement of nearly constant temperature throughout the year are called the stenothermal organisms. Example polar bears, lizards, amphibian plants. Depending on ability to maintain body temperature, organisms are of two types. The poikilotherms, whose body temperature varies with surrounding. They are also known as ectothermic or cold-blooded. Example reptiles and the amphibians. Then the homeothermal. Body temperature remains constant despite changes in ambient temperature. They are also known as endothermic or warm-blooded. Example birds and the mammals. In plants, temperature affect various processes such as photosynthesis, respiration, reproduction, and flowering, mineral and water absorption, growth, and development. Similarly, in animals, temperature affects metabolic activities, distribution, ratio, color, growth, and development and behavior. Next, we have water. For aquatic organisms, the quality of water becomes important. The salt concentration or salinity in parts per thousand less uh, is less than 5 in inland waters and 30 to 35 in sea and more than in the hypersaline lagoons. Some organisms are tolerant of a wide range of salinities, which are the uri-haline. Examples salmon, but others are restricted to a narrow range, which are the stenohaline. Example shark. Many freshwater animals cannot live for long in seawater and vice versa because of the osmotic problems they would face. Light. Various life processes are influenced by the intensity, duration, quality of light. Plants produce food through photosynthesis, which is only possible when sunlight is available as a source energy. Many species of small plants, that is herbs and shrubs growing in forests, are adapted to photosynthesize optimally under very low light conditions because they are constantly overshadowed by the tall canopied trees. Many plants also depend on sunlight to flower. Many animals use a diurnal and the seasonal variations in light intensity and duration. That is photoperiod as cues for timing their foraging, migration, and reproductive activities. On the other hand, deep in the oceans, more than 500 meters, the environment is perpetually dark and its inhabitants are not aware of the existence of celestial source of energy, that is sun. There are different light zones in deep lake and ocean. Soil is the upper weathered humus containing part of Earth's surface which sustains terrestrial plant life. The nature and properties of soil in different places vary. It is dependent on the climate, the weathering process, whether soil is transported or sedimentary, and how soil development occurred. Various characteristics of the soil, such as soil composition, grain size, and aggregation, determine the percolation and water holding capacity of the soil. These characteristics, along with the parameters such as pH, mineral composition, and the topography, determine to large extent the vegetation in any area. Similarly, in the aquatic environment, the sediment characteristics often determine the type of benthic animals that can thrive there. The appearance of different layers exposed one above the other in a vertical section of the soil from surface downward to the parent rock is called the soil profile. A soil profile consists of several soil horizons, the soil containing maximum of the three horizons of its own in addition to a layer of surface litter. The three horizons of the soil are called the A, B, C. The surface litter layer is called the surface litter layer. Surface litter layer is called the O horizon. Pedology. Response to abiotic factors. By which the organism keeps the internal environment constant despite drastic changes in the external condition. It's called homeostasis. Living organisms cope with the stressful condition by various methods. Some organisms are able to maintain a constant body temperature and osmotic concentration despite change in external environment. They are called the regulators. Example bird, mammals, few invertebrates and the vertebrates. We have confirmed animals and plants which cannot maintain the thermal and the osmotic balance with environment are called the conformers. About 99% of animals and nearly all plants belong to the category of conformers. Some species are the partial regulators. They have the ability to regulate the body functions to a limited extent. Beyond that limit, they become conformers. Third is the migrate. The organisms can migrate temporarily from the unfavorable habitat to more favorable area and return when unfavorable period is over. Then the suspend. Some organisms avoid unfavorable environment by escaping in time. Example polar bear goes hibernation and some snails and fish undergo estivation and many zooplanktons enter diapause. Then we have adaptation. Adaptation is any attribute of the organism that enables the organism to survive and reproduce in its habitat. Adaptation in plants. Plants that have adapted to bright sunlight are called the sun plants or heliophytes, while those growing in the partial shade or low intensity light are called the shade plants or skyophytes. Skyophytes or the shade plants. Xerophytes or adaptation to dry habitats and high temperature condition. These are of four types. It is the ephemeral, drought escapers, then the annuals, drought evaders, then the succulents, drought resistant succulents. Non-succulent perennials. Many desert plants have a thick cuticle on the leaf surfaces. Stomata range in deep pits to minimize water loss through transpiration. These plants also have a special photosynthetic pathway that enables their stomata to remain closed during daytime. Some desert plants like the Opuntia have no leaves, instead leaves are reduced to spines and the photosynthetic function is taken over by the flattened. Adaptation in animals. Animal also develop strategies to live better in Adaptation may be short term, temporary in nature, like tanning of skin, increase in heartbeat, long term, permanent in nature, like the typical specific type of the beak, claw. In animals, most adaptation against environment changes and stress condition are physiological and behavioral adaptation. Then we have the camouflage, is the ability to blend with the surroundings or background by which animals remain unnoticed from prey or predator. Example, many insect, reptiles, and mammals mimicry resemblance of the one species with another in order to obtain advantage, especially against predation. The species which is imitated is called the model, while the animal which imitate is known as the mimic or mimetic. Animals found in the arid or desert areas show two types of adaptation, which is reducing water loss and ability to tolerate arid condition. Kangaroo desert rat seldom drinks water and possesses a thick coat to minimize the evaporation desiccation. 90% of its water requirement is met from the metabolic metabolic water, while 10% is got from the food. Loss of water is minimized by producing nearly solid urine and feces. Some organisms show behavioral adaptation to cope with the variations in the environment. Example, desert lizards. And we have the populations and the population attributes. In nature, it is difficult to find any single individual of any species, or majority of them live in the groups and share to compete for similar resources, potentially interbreed and thus constitute a population. Although the term interbreeding implies sexual reproduction, a group of individuals resulting from even asexual reproduction is also generally considered as a population for the purpose for ecological studies. For example, all the cormorants in a wetland, rats in an abundant dwelling, teak wood trees in the forest, tract bacteria in a culture plate, and lotus plant in a pond, etc. Cormorants. A population has certain attributes that an individual organism does not have. An individual may have births and deaths, but a population has birth rate and birth death rates. In a population, these rates refer to per capita births and deaths respectively. The rates hence expressed as change in the numbers with respect to members of the population. For example, if in a pond there are 20 lotus plants last year and through reproduction 8 new are added, taking the current to 28. We calculate the birth as a 8 by 20. It is 0.4 offspring per lotus per year. Sex ratio is the another attribute characteristics of a population. An individual is either a male or female, but a population has a sex ratio. In most type of population, individuals are of different age, and the proportion of individuals in each age group is called the age structure or age distribution of the population, which influences natality and the mortality. There are three major functions of the ecological ages in any population. It is a pre-reproductive, reproductive, and the post-reproductive. If the age distribution is plotted for the population, the resulting structure is called the age pyramid. For human population, the age pyramid generally show age distribution of males and female in the combined diagram. Triangular age pyramid represents young or the rapidly growing population. Bell-shaped age pyramid, which is stable or stationary population where growth is nearly zero. Then we have the declining or the urn-shaped pyramid, which is a diminishing population. Population growth. The size of a population keeps on changing in time depending on various factors, including food availability, predation pressure, and adverse weather. The density of a population in a given habitat during a given period fluctuates due to changes in four basic processes, two of which natality and the immigration contributes to an increase in the population density and two contributes to decrease. If n is the population density at time t, then its density at time t plus 1 is the nt plus 1 and nt plus b plus 1. Population density is defined as the numbers of individuals of a species per unit area or per unit volume at a given time. Population density. Growth of population with time shows specific and predictable pattern. Two types of growth pattern of a population are exponential and the logistic growth. Exponential growth is the Habitat are unlimited. Each species has the ability to have the ability to realize fully its innate potential to grow in number. The population grows in exponential or the geometric fashion. In J-shaped curve, there is a rapid increase in density with the passage of time called the exponential. The density values, when plotted against the time, give a J-shaped growth, and at the peak, the population growth ceases abruptly due to the environmental resistance. The following equation describes the exponential or the geometric growth pattern of a population, which results in a G-shaped growth curve. It is a dn by dt with Rn, where R is the intrinsic rate of natural increase and N is the population density. Logistic growth, the population growth curve in human population growth of yeast, Drosophila rabbit under laboratory condition shows an initial slow rate and then it accelerates and finally slows, giving the growth curve which is sigmoid or S-shaped. The peak constant level represented by K or upper of the sigmoid curve is called the maximum carrying capacity, which marks the limit to which the environment can support the population. S-shaped growth curve can be described by the following logistic equation: dn by dt Rn, which is a k minus n by k. Since resources for growth of most animal population are finite and become limited sooner or later, the logistic growth model is considered a more realistic one. Maximum carrying capacity. We have the life history variation. Population evolved to maximize the reproductive fitness called the Darwinian fitness. Darwinian fitness in the habitat in which they live. Under a particular set of selection pressure, organisms evolve towards the most efficient reproductive strategy. Some organisms breed only once in their lifetime. The Pacific salmon fish bamboo, while others breed many times in their lifetime. Some produce a large number of small sized organisms, which is the oysters, pelagic fishes, while others produce a small number of large sized offspring. Ecologists suggest that life history traits of organisms have evolved in relation to the constraints imposed by the abiotic and the biotic of the habitat in which they live.